All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our BELC call, first one of 2024. I'm honored to be here with so many of you this evening and excited for an incredible year that we're going to have together. I am so excited for my partner in crime, my mentor, my co-host this evening, and I get to be on the front lines with him every single day in business. And I'm so humbled that he would take time away from his family this evening to be with all of us at the BELC and spending time to really enrich our lives, pour vision into us, infuse our future with dreams and hope and excitement. And I don't know about you, but from the first time I met the great Dan Charlier, I was in awe by the person that he was becoming, not just by who he was, but who he's becoming. And what I love about Dan is this motto. It's called "There's no finish line for excellence." And Dan, when I look at you and I look at your life, I see you growing every single day. And I want to say how much I admire you, I respect you, and I appreciate you. And thank you for being a leader on the BELC. So Dan, welcome to the call. Thanks so much for being on. And we're so excited that you're here with us tonight.
Excited to be here. Excited to be here with you guys. Oh man, are we playing some music? Excited to be here with you guys, Lester. How you guys doing today? Hopefully you're excited. We got a lot of great things going on and ready to get this thing started with you guys.
You know, Dan, I am excited because our teams are rocking. I see more people than ever before making their first checks, comma checks. I see people getting out of debt. I see people on our team saving a lot of money and being prudent financially. And just really their lives are getting better. And that's what I love about our platform. And so tonight, everybody, here's what's going to happen. I get the honor and the privilege of interviewing my mentor. I get the honor and privilege of picking his brain tonight. And you get to be in the audience and you get to participate and drop those questions in the chat and blow up the chat when you hear something. And if you're ready, put some fire signs in the chat right now that you want to hear from the great Dan Charlier and show him your energy and give him your very best. And for those of you that can, engage with us. And we look forward to hanging out with you this evening. All right. So Dan, I'm just going to launch. Because we don't have a lot of time. And I want to make sure that the people on here get value. So, I've, Dan, built side by side in Southern California with you for many years, come across many of your leaders. Actually, many of your leaders collaborate with me and my wife and our teams. And I've never really had any challenges in our business with you. Everybody that comes is like, let's do it together. Let's build together. So tell me this, Dan, why is integrity so important to you as a leader, which is what I feel from your team?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I posted something earlier today, and it was a comment that was made from you guys ever heard of a guy by the name of Warren Buffett? Anybody ever heard of Warren Buffett? And one of the things that Warren Buffett said, he said that you would agree Buffett clearly is an extremely bright guy, right? And one of the things he said in his quote, I don't want to misquote him, he said, in looking for people to hire, you look for three qualities: integrity, intelligence, and energy. And if they don't have the first one, the last two doesn't matter. You follow me? So for me, that's extremely important because everything falls and rises on leadership. So one of the things that you'll hear me say all the time, you can be part of a not so good company and have great leadership and have an incredible experience. So I remember when I got recruited into, I don't know if some of you know this, but I was recruited into Primerica Financial Services back in 1996. And my upline leader was a guy by the name of Bob Frater. I still remember his name. Right? And I was there for probably maybe about 3 to 4 months. And I remember, I didn't know anything about the industry. I didn't know anything about insurance. I didn't know any of that. But the way I was recruited is I was taking my kids to Burger King one day. And because as a firefighter, you work 24 hours on, 24 hours off, 48 hours on, 48 hours off. So on my day off, in the middle of the day, I took my kids to Burger King. And you know how I don't know if the Burger Kings and McDonald's still have it, but back in the day, They used to have like a playroom in there where where you can go, the kids can go in there and they have balls and they can jump up and down and like that. So I took my kids there to play, and I was sitting there reading a book, right? And this lady approached me. She says, very rarely do I see see a dad spending time with his kids and then reading a book. You strike me as a very sharp person. What's your name? I say, my name is Dan Charlier. She says, well, my company is growing and expanding. We're looking for some sharp people. And my mentor told me, if I see someone sharp like yourself, to get your name and number, to get their name and number, because he's looking for some sharp people, right? So guess what I thought when she got my name and number? I said to myself, finally, I've been discovered, right? And so I give her my name and number, and she says, she says, my mentor's name is Bob Frater. He's going to give you a call tomorrow at 11 o'clock, right? So the next day at 11 o'clock exactly, this guy calls me. He goes, hey, my name is Bob Frater from Primerica Financial Services. One of my associates met you at Burger King and told me that you were spending time with your kids and you were reading a book, and you strike me that you strike her as a sharp person, and I'm looking for some sharp people. And I said, yeah. I said, yeah, my name's Dan Charlier. And he says, well, what do you do? He says, I said, I'm in the Marine Corps. I'm a firefighter in the Marine Corps. And it just so happened, he goes, I was in the Marine Corps too, right? I was like, oh my God, right? So the Marine to Marine connection, he set up an appointment, and that phone call was about 2 minutes long. He set up an appointment, and I went to his office, sat down with him, and he recruited me into the business, right? So I get started in the business, and fortunately for me, because of my background as a Marine Corps drill instructor, my background carrying the colors for the president, leading the #1 drill team in the world, I've always been in the room with very, very great leaders, right? So leadership has always been extremely important to me. And you define great leadership not in great times. You define great leadership when things are not so great, when there's challenges and stuff like that. That's when you see who the real leaders are. Everyone's a great leader when ain't nothing going on, right? But when there's some stuff going on, that's when you see who's who, right? So during the process, I always knew what to look for. And during the process of that 3 months of being with them, I noticed certain things that I couldn't explain it at the time, but I remember thinking to myself, this guy cannot lead me long term. You follow me? This guy cannot lead me long term. Just because one of the fundamental things is that I watched the way he treated me differently because of my background, but I watched the way he treated his guys. You follow me? And I said to myself, it's kind of like the old saying that let's say you go out on a date, right? And whoever you're out on a date with, let's say you see them the way they treat the waitress or the way they treat the waiter, right? That tells you a lot of character about that person. You follow me? Which I'm not big on judging, but I like to look at those little things. So I decided at that time that, Primerica, not Primerica as a company, but that individual leader was not someone that could, so I decided not to go to the meetings anymore. And then I met Ed Mylett in 1998. And instantly when I met Ed Mylett, I was like, this is a leader that's going somewhere. And I didn't really join WFG. I joined Ed Mylett because he was going to be my direct leadership. So integrity is extremely important to me because I like to do long-term things. I don't want to be when I left the Marine Corps to do this, there were several times in the span of 25 years where there was flashier things, right? Then there was the time when the market was exploding and people were going, oh my God, real estate's the place to be. You got to do this, you got to do that. Then the mortgage boom. People were like, oh my God, mortgages, you got to go do mortgages. And I seen people flounder from one thing to another and doing all of this stuff. But because I was very grounded, on my decisions and choices, right? And I had very strong beliefs in that. It's kind of like, you ever hear the term, like, you ever seen like a palm tree? See, in a palm tree in a storm, if you watch a palm tree in a storm, it could bend all the way like this, but it never breaks because it's deep rooted, right? So my decision that I made back in 1998 was a very deep rooted decision, which allowed me, which is one of the things that I look at when I'm interviewing people. When I'm interviewing people, I ask them, walk me through your career the last 20 years. So if I see the pattern that you're always going from one job to another job to another job to another job, it just lets me know the way you're wired. So you're only going to be here short term. I like to be around people. If I'm going to invest my time into someone, I want to be around someone that I know that's deep rooted, that they're actually going to do their homework. Does that make
Wow,
sense?
Dan, that's fantastic. Phenomenal. And that's a perfect segue because, I love the quote that says, it's not so much what you believe, it's how hard you believe it, which talks about your roots and your foundation. So tell me, from the time you started now to the time to when you were building your business, building your base shop, building your team, how did you develop the abundance mindset that you have right now today?
That's a great question. A lot of it is personal self-improvement and personal self-growth, right? Because a lot of times you don't know what you don't know. So for example, I was born in Haiti, right? So I'm Haitian, and I came here when I was 9 years old. I grew up with a single mom in New York, and I watched my mom work 15, 16-hour days. And then we didn't have, I think the most amount of money my mom made was like $28,000 a year. That was the most amount of money that she made, even at her peak, right? So, so when we're talking about lack of, I didn't really feel like we were poor because, we lived in a good neighborhood. My mom had a good apartment. I didn't grow up in the hood or anything like that, although the hood wasn't that far away. You know what I mean? You cross the street in the wrong place, you get robbed. Like, we always knew that, right? We always knew where to stay away. And I got robbed a couple of times, right? But my neighborhood was pretty intense. High school was pretty intense. College was pretty intense. But I never in anything that I've done, I was never privy to, how we say work twice as hard on yourself than you do in your business, right? So I always had like an employee mindset. And so when I went in the military, contrast is very powerful. So when you're around people that have a scarcity mentality, which that they believe that there's a lack of, right? You automatically adapt that mentality, whether you consciously know it or you unconsciously do it, right? And there's certain things that people say all the time, or we say all the time. Like I would say all the time, man, just a brother trying to make it. You know what I mean? And I didn't even think anything about it because everybody said that, right? So it wasn't until I started associating myself with successful people, people started to question what it is that I was saying. Like, I'll give you an example. I used to say all the time, another day, another dime, another day, another dollar, right? So I would say all these little things, right? And I had no idea the power. By the way, when you say those things, those are affirmations. You follow me? It's funny because I was getting my car washed. And the guy said to me, I said to someone, I said, man, how you doing? And he said, man, it's just another day, another dollar. And I smiled at him. I said, what about if it was another day, another million? And he looked at me. He was like, whoa, I never heard that before, right? Right? So it wasn't until I started reading, to be honest with you, and it's like attending all these kind of meetings where your coaches and your mentors are pouring into you and introducing a new way of thinking. You follow me? Introducing a new, and so as you start to introduce a new way of thinking, I remember when my ledge said this to me. He says, Charlier, you don't have to believe what I'm about to tell you. Okay? Because your mind is going to reject it. He said, what if I was to tell you that you can turn your annual income into a monthly one? And if you could turn your annual income into a monthly one, what would your life look like? And I remember when he said that to me, I went home. You guys, I was renting a room in someone's house, like 10 by 10. And I'm laying in my bed and I'm thinking to myself, turn my annual income into a monthly one. And at the time, I'm making like, I think like $2,800 a month, whatever that is annually net. And I'm thinking to myself, man, like, what if I could turn my annual income into a monthly one? I didn't believe it, but I allowed myself to at least think about it, right? I started thinking about, man, where would I live? What kind of car would I drive? Blah, 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 all this stuff, right? So then I go to my job, right? And remember what I said about contrast. Everybody at my job, we're all making the same amount of money. So if you go to Google right now and you pull up military pay chart, right? You pull up military pay chart, everybody gets paid the same amount of money. So if you're an E4, you make a certain amount of money. You're an E5, you make, so everybody's broke. And I remember just talking to my buddies, and I was like, man, my mentor told me I could turn my annual income into a monthly one. And then one of my buddies said this, right? Charlier, remember, if it sounds too good to be true, then it's probably too good to be true. And it's something that I've heard all my life. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. If it sounds too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true. And all of a sudden, that dream that I was dreaming, and I don't think that person did it consciously, that dream that I was dreaming all of a sudden went away. I was just like, oh my God, like what the hell, man? And my buddy's like, dude, you drinking that Kool-Aid, man. You drinking that Kool-Aid, right? So luckily, there's a saying that Tony Robbins says all the time and all the coaches say all the time. They say proximity is power. Never underestimate your associations, good or bad, right? So I go to the office. I'm spending time with my mentor, right? And I happen to say to my mentor what my buddies told me. I said, yeah, man, I was down at Crash Fire Rescue and I was talking to my buddies and man, here's what they said. And my mentor goes, stop. He goes, stop. You're getting ready to tell me what your broke buddies are telling you. Is that what you're getting ready to tell me? He goes, Charlier, do you want to be like them? I go, no, not from a judgment standpoint, but do you want their lifestyle? Do you want their income? And I said, no. He goes, well, why are you allowing them to influence you? But I'll entertain it. What did your buddies tell you? Right? I said, well, my buddy told me that if it sounds too good to be true, then it's probably too good to be true. And he said these words to me. I never forget him. He said, Charlier, what if it's true? What if it's true that you could turn your annual income into a monthly one? And he goes, by the way, who the hell else is telling you that? Do you have anyone else in your life that's offering you an opportunity? Right? Can they offer you an opportunity? Are they an example of success financially in business? And he goes, Dan, why are you even listening to that crap? Right? And at that point, I started to realize there is a reason why we have the top 3%. the top 5%, the top 1%, the top 10%. You put 100 people in a room, you put 100 men and women in a room, there's the top 1%. Then there's the top 5%. So if I'm seeking to be in the top 5%, the top 1%, the top 3%, they think different than the 98 percenters. You guys follow me? So there's a saying that all my rich buddies, right? All my rich buddies, they have this saying that they say. They say, our business, they say, we hang with the classes, but our business serves the masses. You follow me? We hang with the classes, but our business serves the masses. So if I own a company, and I hire you and I pay you $50,000 a year, $70,000 a year, $80,000 a year, right? I got to get you to believe that the most amount of money you can make is $80,000 a year, or the most amount of money that you can make is $50,000 a year. You follow me? So I'm not going to tell you exactly how I think. I had a buddy of mine that's got a beautiful house, right? And we were talking one day, and he had came over the house. I'm always hosting firesides, and teams always coming over and all this stuff. And he says to me one day, I thought this was pretty interesting. And if I said his name, you guys would know who he is, but I'm not going to put him on blast. And he says to me, he goes, hey man, why you got so many people coming at your house? I go, what do you mean? He says, you always have all these people coming by your house. I go, what are you talking about? I said, I said, you own several companies. Don't you host things at your house? He goes, listen to me on this. He goes, I would never invite those people to my house. I go, what? What are you talking about? He goes, hey man, those people work for me. I don't want them to see my lifestyle. I don't want them to see my mansion. Listen, he has a Rolls Royce and he has a Honda. You know what the Honda is for? He drives the Honda to work because he doesn't want, it's like he has two different lifestyles. And I said to him, we're in two totally different worlds, bro. Right? And he's making a lot of money, right? But the reality is he's in a position only he can make seven figures. His people can never make seven figures. So once I started to understand why the opportunity is so powerful, because if you're working on yourself, you're working on your craft, whether you're old, whether you're young, you have a shot to make $100,000 a year. You have a shot to make $250,000 a year. You have a shot to make $500,000 a year. You go from zero to hero here, right? So empowering people for them to understand that there's not a lack of money. The recipe of money is I create value. Money doesn't have an option. It has to come. You follow me? So but you also have to understand that most people are conditioned in their thinking. They don't even think it's possible. I remember when I made the decision I was going to get out the Marine Corps, my mother's on the phone with me and my mother goes, baby, it's tough out here. You got a good job. You got benefits. You got medical. You got dental. Why would you get out the Marine Corps to go out and do this? It's tough out here, right? Now, my mother, I love her to death. But do you think I take business advice from my mom? No, I don't take business advice from my mom. And if I did, I wouldn't have been in a position to take all the financial pressure off of her my first year in business. I was just like, Mom, I love you, but that's not who I take business advice. And I didn't tell her that's not who I take business advice. I was just like, Mom, I love you. It's going to be okay. Trust me, you're not going to have to worry about money for the rest of your life. Right? Now, she didn't believe me at the time, But then as soon as those checks started coming in for her, she's like, oh, that's my baby. Oh my God. All my sacrifices I did. God bless me with my, all of that stuff. And some of you now, I'm sure you're dealing with aging parents now. And my mother every day, she's like, my biggest gift was, the whole deal, right? So the abundance mindset. So one of the books that I read and studied years ago was this book right here called I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's called Power versus Force, right? Power versus Force. The author's name is David R. Hawkins, where it talks about energy. It talks about vibrations, right? So scarcity mentality, a lack of, where we talk about low vibrations, where there's fear, worry, frustration, doubt, anxiety. Those are all low vibes. The abundant mindset, there's not a shortage of people. There's not a shortage of people to recruit. There's not a shortage of people that are looking for an opportunity. There's not a shortage of families that need help. Once you understand that, that's why one of the things with recruiting and helping families, I always say, we are looking for people that are looking for us. I don't spend a lot of time convincing. I convey the message. There's tons of people out there looking for an opportunity. There's tons of families out there that want you to sit down with them and show them financial literacy. There's not a shortage of it. So once you start to understand that, you operate more abundantly. And guess what starts to happen? You turn your annual income into a monthly one. And then you turn your annual income into a weekly one. And then you turn your annual income to one freaking cycle. Right? Which is pretty cool that it becomes fun. But I hope that was a long answer to your question, but I hope I answered your question on that.
Dan, you nailed it. And if somebody had told me that in the beginning and it wasn't the right person, I wouldn't have believed them. But as we were preparing for this call and as I was reflecting on my life and how it's gotten better by being here, Dan, that's happened to me, right? I made more in 1 month than I made at a year working for the city of Los Angeles. And I was just reflecting on the peace that I have. I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and we were talking about how much peace we have in our lives. Peace financially, no debt, no tax situations, savings every cycle, money set aside. Every property we own is completely paid off. We have no debt, no like none of that jazz, right? So the amount of peace that I have, and me and my wife have, is just priceless because of the benefits of investing here in our company, in our system, in our business, in this platform, which has produced an entire lifestyle that is a tangible lifestyle. So with that said, you're building your business, you're growing your mindset. I love the quote that says, "There's no fallback plan, there's a fall forward plan." So tell me now how you were able to take that and how has the foundation that you've built here created the life that you have and afforded you the things that you have, and give us a picture of the future. What do you feel that's going to look like the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now?
Well, part of it first is that there has to be there's a couple of things, right? So the first thing, if I had a pipeline and I was drawing it, the first thing is your faith, right? You have to be grounded. You have to be grounded with your faith, right? So that comes first, right? And what do I mean by that? So when I was what I call in the matrix, right? So the military, you're in the matrix. I get paid the 1st and the 15th. Can I share my screen real quick? Right? So if I let me see if I could show you guys something. So if I go here, let me see if I go online. Oh, no, it doesn't let me go on. Does it let me go online? Oh, no, let me not do this. Let me not do that because I'm going to try to get all fancy on my computer and lose all you guys. So the first thing is your faith, right? So you have to be grounded with your faith. And here's what I mean by that. I remember when I was the platoon sergeant for the Marine Corps Silent Drill Team. This is 1995, right? And I'm getting ready to leave Washington D.C. to go to my first duty station, which was in El Toro, California, right? And I'm meeting with my first sergeant that was my mentor at the time. He says, Charlier, he says, you're going to California. California is the land of opportunity. And he says to me, and literally, you guys, I have no idea why he's having this conversation with me, right? And he says, Charlie, have you ever been to a circus? I said, yeah, I've been to a circus. He says, you ever seen that person that walks the tight rope all the way up, right? They're holding that bar and they're walking that tight rope. He says, yeah. I said, and you ever seen the net underneath them? I said, yeah. He goes, what do you think happens if that person's fall? What do you think that's going through that person's mind if they fall? I said, well, if they fall, they got a net that's going to catch them, right? And he said, okay. He says, well, what do you think about, you ever seen a person walk a tightrope and they have nothing underneath them? And I go, yeah. And he goes, what do you think that person's thinking if they fall? He goes, well, if they fall, they don't have a net, they're dead, right? And he goes, that's where you're wrong. He said that person that's walking without a net, they do have a net. Let me tell you what their net is. Their net is their faith. And listen, you guys, like literally, I walked out of that room. I think I was like 27. I walked out of that room. I was like, person's tripping. What the hell he's telling me this crazy story for, right? And then he tells me like all successful people, blah, 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 has that mindset, right? So that you've ever heard something or you read a book and like literally it didn't click, like years later you reread it, you go, oh my God, I can't believe this was in the book, right? Like he gave me that message. Now, that was in 1995. In 1999, Malette's talking to me about going full-time, about quitting my job, going full-time. And being around Malette is like drinking a cup of coffee, right? You just like, you're ready to run through a freaking wall, right? And this was what, he was 29, I was 32, right? And so Malette's telling me about going full-time, you got to go for it, blah, 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 all the stuff, right? And everything made sense to me. But then when I got to by myself, I was like, oh, man, can I really do this? Da, 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 da. I was scared, right? And when you're scared, you do three things. You justify, you blame, and you make excuses. So I talked myself out of it, right? I was like, no, why should I go full time? I only got 7 years to get to my retirement. I'm walking away from my retirement. And it made sense to me, right? So I went out one night. I had my license. I went out. I did a kitchen table. Family didn't have savings. We set up their savings. They didn't have protection. We set up their protection. We put a game plan for them to get out of debt. We did the whole deal with them, right? They were so excited. They gave me 10 referrals and all of that stuff. Then I get back home to my apartment. I sat down and I was thinking to myself, wow, this was freaking awesome what we did for the family, right? Because they got protection, college education, all of that stuff. And then I sat down, I looked at, what my comp would be, because I never did that before. After I do the appointment, after I close, that's when I would calculate my comp. And I figured out the math. I was like, oh my God, I just made $800. I was like, Fred, how awesome is that, right? And I spent 2 hours with the family. That's like $400 an hour. And I was like, oh my God, this is so freaking awesome, right? And so then I started to get the thought, man, maybe I can do this, right? But I'm still scared. And the next day I get up, I'm still in the military. The next day I get up And we had to be on base at 5 o'clock because I would always take my guys running in the morning before we take over our shift. So I get there, I get to Crash Fire Rescue at El Toro, 30 Marines there waiting for me. We're stretching out. And then right face, forward bars, double time, Marine Corps, we start running, right? And I'm in the front of the platoon and we're running, calling cadence. Low ride, Leo. Like we're calling cadence, right? And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, something hits me. Boom. What are you afraid of? This is your freaking shot. And I could remember it. I got goosebumps. I could remember it like it was yesterday, Lester. I stopped running. I told the Marines, keep running. I went back to the administration office of Crash Fire Rescue. I said, I'm getting out. It sent a shockwave through the Marine Corps. Like Color Sergeant Marine Corps, blah, blah, he's getting out the Marine Corps, right? And I realized months after making that decision, I look back, I go, oh my God, I couldn't believe that in my mind, I was in this trap. And it's kind of like the story that people pray to God all the time. God, please help me, please help me, please help me. And you prospect them. They're like, no, not for me. You know what I mean? Kind of like those kind of things, right? And so I start off with faith, right? Then after that, you have to have a vision, right? You have to have a vision. Like, what do I want to be 5 years from now? Where do I want to be 10 years from now? Where do I want to be 15 years from now? Where do I want to be 20 years from now? Right? And at that time, Lester, I thought to myself, what if I get to my 50s? I get to my 50s. I'm 57 now. My mother's 82. Do you know what my mother's Social Security check is every month? $1,700 a month. And she lives in New York. I said to myself, Charlier, what if you get to your late 50s and you're in the land of the free, the home of the brave, and you're going to watch your mom struggle in her 80s? You follow me? Along with, let alone your kids, your grandkids, your family, and all. Because some people in their 30s, they're talking about, man, I'm so tired of being tired. Be like, dude, you in your 30s and you tired? Wait till 10 years from now. Wait till 20 years from now, right? And I would see these people that would get older, but they would become more distinguished. And I would see people, man, that dude's old, man. He or she looked like life would beat him up a little bit. You know what I mean? Financial pressure, stress, all of the stuff that comes with it. So there needs to be a vision, right, of where you want to go. If I can help enough people get what they want, I would automatically get what I want, right? And then from vision, there needs to be a dream. Like, what's your dream? I've always been a dreamer. Ever since I was young, I've always been a dreamer. I was like, man, I always looked at nice cars. I always looked at nice homes. I've always wanted to travel. There's got to be this dream that you have. Now we say, one of the things that keep in mind, keep your dreams bigger than your fears. Because if your dreams are bigger than your fears, you'll achieve your dreams. But if you allow your fears to be bigger than your dreams, you'll never achieve your dreams. So the dream is important, right? Then the next thing is, you got to have some skill set. You got to have some skill set. You know how to make a phone call, schedule an appointment. You know how to do a one-on-one, enroll someone into the business. Do you know how to fast start when you do a one-on-one? Right? Do you know how to do the kitchen table? Are you familiar with the flagship products? If I told you right now, sell me a $20 million IUL, can you close me right now? You know how to run the illustrations. You know how to do all of that stuff. You got to know that. And the last one is that fast starting a new recruit. How to get in the right market, stay in the right market, control the point of contact, all those fundamentals, right? So those four things on skill set, you got to know. And here's the last one. The last one is that there has to be a challenge. Someone's got to challenge you. So when Malet told me, he says, hey, man, I remember my first month that I went full-time, right? I got my licenses. I'm appointed. I got this vision. I got this dream. I have the skill set. I got all of that stuff, right? And I went to him, Keenan, and I said to him, and I'm scared. And I said to him, hey, at 1099, I'm out. I said, what do you want me to focus on? You know what he said to me, Robert? He looked at me. He didn't talk to me about 20 different things. Here's what he said to me. He said, Charlier, go make as much money as you possibly can. Go make as much money as you possibly can. And I knew how to do that. My oldest son asked me a question. He says, Dad, when did it click for you? Like, when did it click? When did the business click for you? You know when the business clicked for me? The minute that I wrote my first app, because we used to write apps, not like on the internet, like you guys are doing now. The minute that I wrote my first app and I sent it in and the company sent me a check, I said, got it. No app, no check. So guess what I did my first month? I sent a bunch of apps downrange, right? I sent a bunch of apps out because I was like, oh my God, they paid me $800 to do this? Game on. It wasn't rocket science to me. And by the way, I didn't have a background in sales. To me, it wasn't even selling. It was just educating people. And so what ended up happening my first month, I made $18,000 my first month. And I went, oh my God, I can't believe they had brainwashed me enough for me to believe that my time was worth $6 an hour. Because when I did the math on what I was getting paid in the military, it was $6 an hour. So the other day I'm at my club in Beverly Hills, right? I'm a member of a club called the Grand Havana Room in Beverly Hills. It's the most exclusive cigar club. Hold on, Malet's texted me. Typo, I assume you were talking to the. Okay. So the other night, I'm at the Grand Havana Room, right? Most exclusive cigar club in the world, the whole deal, right? And I'm spending some time with some buddies. And those of you that followed me in my story, you probably saw it in my story. And there were 4 military officers that walked in. Like literally the whole club stopped when they walked in. You know, you don't very rarely do you see like a 4-star general. 4-star general, his sergeant major's with him, his company commander, colonel. Boom, I automatically get up and I recognize them. I go to my locker, grab like 12 very exclusive cigars, give it to them, give them praise, all of that stuff, right? And before they left, they came back to say thank you because they knew who I was. Not knew who I was, but they knew because when I told them I was the Color Sergeant Marine Corps, they knew exactly what that was. And the 4-star general that I worked with, he passed away, but his name was General Carl Monday. He was the Commandant of the Marine Corps, right? So we talked about that. So they came in. They were very graceful. We took pictures together. They gave me a challenge coin. I've got it somewhere here. They gave me a challenge coin. You know, the whole deal. You know, I put it in my story, right? So I'm on my way home, and I'm thinking. I said a 4-star general, you guys. 4-star general. It's an extremely prestigious position. Very rare that someone become a 4-star general. Very, very rare, right? It's also the highest paid position that you could be in the military. Now, usually you get to a 4-star general, you've been in the military 30, 35, 40 years. You follow me? And there's a whole bunch of politics. There's a whole bunch of politicking that go on to become a 4-star general. You got to have some serious game to become a 4-star general, right? And I thought to myself, I wonder what a 4-star general makes. Not from a judgment standpoint, but I want to, like 40 years, I got to do all this crap. And at the end, what do I make? People go, well, Dan, it's not all about the money. Okay. That's usually people that ain't got no money say that. Let's just keep it real, right? Your mortgage on your house, you go to your bank, hey, I'm kind of tight right now. It ain't about the money. See what happens. Right? Money doesn't make you happy, but happy makes you money, right? So I'm very clear on that. And some of you might say, well, Dan, you know, my wife's not supporting me. My partner's not supporting me. Go make some money, see how much they support you. Right? So I pulled it up online. It's public information. I go military pay chart for officers, not even enlisted officers. 010 over 40 years is $18,000 a month. 18 grand a month. To all of that responsibility, I'm getting paid 18 grand a month. Right? And I'm like, geez, Louise, are you kidding me right now? My check on Friday was 120,000. Just my check on Friday. And I'm like, oh my God. And I only been here 25 years. I started making money. I made 180,000 my first year. And I said to myself, oh my God, because that would have been me. I would have been in the military for 40 years. I would have been Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. That was my track record. And imagine doing all of that, all those accolades, after 40 years, you know what the retirement is? You get 40% of your base pay. Now I'm enlisted, right? So if I would have been Sergeant Major, the most amount of money I would have made as a Sergeant Major was $9,000 a month. My retirement would have been probably around $4 grand a month. And you know what you do after you retire from the military? You go get another job for another 20 years. So imagine doing 30 years of something, and then you're at the top of your game in the military. You're not working anymore. You're just telling people what to do and drinking coffee. That we used to call it retired on active duty, right? And then you leave that, and then you got to go start another job, and you're now a freaking rookie again. Imagine that mindset. That's why most of my buddies in the military now, I can't really hang with them that much because our life is so drastic, not just from a money standpoint, from a mindset standpoint. Like 10 years ago, right? And then I got to go after this. 10 years ago, one of my buddies is getting married in San Diego, right? It might have been 10, 12 years ago. They get married in San Diego. His name is Scott Hamp. He was one of my sergeants in the Marine Corps, my little crew when I was in the Marine Corps, right? And they call me. They like, and I'm blowing and going. I'm building a base shop. I'm busy. I'm running appointments, doing all the stuff when you're in the building stage of your business, right? You're building your hierarchy. You're traveling with the company. You're going all around the world. Your associations have changed, all of this stuff. And when I get around my buddies in the military, all of our conversations are like what we did 10 years ago. We talk about the good old days. That's, oh man, remember when we was drill instructors, blah, blah, blah. That's all we talk about. I can't talk to them about what we're doing now. So they're all figuring this thing out. They invite me to the wedding. My buddy Ron Pickett calls me. And he goes, now Ron, I'm 57, so Ron's probably about 52, right? So I think we're in our 40s at the time. Probably in our 40s at the time. And Ron calls me. He goes, Charlier, He says, hey, we're making arrangements at the hotel. And they were making arrangements. It was the Hilton. I think it was a Hilton in San Diego, right? And they're making arrangements at the hotel, and they want to know, Lester, who do I want to share a room with? Right? When I tell you I lost my mind, I was like, you guys are a bunch of grown-ass men. Like, why the hell? First of all, we're at the Hilton. I was like, I lost my mind. I was like, why would I? Do you get what I'm saying? And they're like, oh man, we knew you were gonna act like that. You know, you're too big for us right now. I was like, this is why I don't mess with y'all. This is why I don't mess with you. I said, you know what? Tell Scott I'm gonna send him a gift. I ain't coming. Right? I sent him the most expensive gift, took him out to dinner, all of that stuff. But if you don't have a vision in your future, and sometimes the people that are close to us, they hold us emotionally hostage. If you don't know what that means, do a little bit of research on it. Here's what they're going to say to you. Lanisa, here's what they're going to say to you. Oh man, you change. You think you're too good now. You know, all these things they're going to say to you. You think I worked this hard not to freaking change? Now, my character's still the same, right? My character's still the same. But if I'm the same freaking person that I was 10 years ago, if I'm the same person that I was 5 years ago, if I'm the same person that I was a year ago, I'm going to continue evolving. I'm going to continually getting better at every aspect of my life. And the people around you, they're either growing or they're dying. I don't want to be around nothing dead. You follow me? I don't want nothing. Oh man, I'm just gonna, I got buddies that get out the military. They're like, oh man, I'm retired, man. I'm not doing nothing. I said, so you mean to tell me you're sitting around every day and you're doing nothing? Have you done the research on that? You'll be dead in 5 years. Do the little research on that. So I always forever want to live a life that has purpose. I always and forever want to have a life that has meaning. Man, I can't sleep at night because I'm so freaking excited. And I can't wait to get up in the morning because I'm so freaking excited about what I'm doing. So I want to be in that space where I'm consistently reading books. I'm going, oh my God, I learned this. Oh my God, I'm learning that. And now that I'm learning something new, I can share it with other people. It's about contribution. It's about how many people I can help, how many people I can serve, right? And if you can get an idea from what I just said, and you take that idea and you go apply it and go win for your family, right? That's a huge blessing. So I'll end with that.
Dan, I have like 50 more questions. I'm so fired up right now, okay? And I know we have to go. And clearly, Dan, you're living in your purpose because yes, you got money on the way up. Now tell me this. You've built people, you're living in your purpose, you're serving your teammates, you're being a leader by teaching them what you know. Let me ask you this. Now we're here. It's 2024, January 2024, about to end the first month of the year. Dan, tell me what you see, because I know the company and the BELC have a lot of massive plans for the people on this leadership team. So what do you see for the next wave of leaders that are up and coming? And what are we going to do to completely help them change their lives as they do their part?
I just think from a timing standpoint, you guys have such a huge advantage right now. If I knew what I know now, right? When I first got started, oh my God, I would have worked 10 times harder because you guys think about this Zoom call, right? I'm at my house in my home office. Some of you guys are not even freaking California. You're all over the place, right? So like this morning, I did a grand opening for an office down the block from me from Woodland Hills. You guys, I felt like I was operating in the dark ages. I was like, oh my God, I remember doing this stuff, right? Because I'm used to being on Zoom with a couple of hundred people in all 50 states. right? So you think about it. So there was a time when you had momentum. If you had momentum, you were doing about 20 appointments a week if you had momentum. Right? You were doing about 20 appointments a week. You know, now you could do 15 or 20 appointments a day. You could do 15 to 20 appointments a day just because of the era that we're in. Just do the math, right? There's a huge need now. Entrepreneurship is cool. See, what happened since COVID, people got a feeling to what it felt like to stay home. Right? They got that feeling. So now there's so many people, if you ask them a question and go, hey, if I was to talk to you about an opportunity, would you listen? The answer is yes now. But they're also looking for several things. They're looking for credibility, which we have. They're looking for a crusade and a cause, which financial literacy is big everywhere, right? And they're looking for an opportunity where they can make money from home, where they can turn their annual income to a monthly one. So if you just look at California, just look at the numbers. California, there's 9.8 million people in California. Do you know what the average median income in California is? $62,000 a year. And you live in California. You follow me on that? So the average person is disturbed financially, let alone they don't have financial literacy. The Census Bureau did a report. They said 73.8% of Americans retire in poverty with less than $10,000 a year. So when you look at our company from going from 72,000 licensed agents to 110,000 licensed agents, we did 1.3 billion in premium last year, paid 1.3 billion to the field force. We just got started. What is it going to look like when we'll get to 100,000 agents? What is it going to look like when we get to 200,000 agents? What is it? We haven't even tapped the marketplace yet. So for those of you that see in the past, you were only allowed to build locally. So we used to say all the time, draw a 5-10 mile radius from where you live. There should be a WFG office in that neighborhood. That rhetoric has changed because now it's a game changer because you can have the quality of life. You could still be at home with your family, still be at home with your kids. And from your office or from your kitchen or from your bathroom, wherever you got access to the internet, right? I have people right now in my base shop. They're FaceTiming me with someone. Hey, I just want to introduce you to this shop, blah, blah, boom. And I set up an appointment right on FaceTime. Like they'll prospect someone and then they'll FaceTime me. I'll pick it up. Hey, blah, 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 all of that stuff. Set up an appointment right there. So it's a lot faster, a lot quicker. And then with the insurance companies, some of the things that's going on with the insurance companies, I was in Hawaii last year. And the insurance companies would tell me they already have the software that you're going to be able to sit down with a client right across the kitchen table and get them approved right then and there. Do you understand what that means business-wise? Everything's moving at the business of speed. That's why you're seeing this whole new wave coming into WFG. This is all they know. And they're making $100,000 their first 3 months, their first 6 months. They're making $1 million a year. All you have to do is look at the numbers. So if you know that this is where this is going, this is what the future looks like and all this stuff, you got to get in gear or you're going to get left behind. Now, the biggest leaders, remember I told you this, the biggest leaders in WFG are being recruited right now. What if you got on your game? There is something called you're one recruit away from an explosion. What if the biggest leader in WFG, like you look at Daniel Fumbo, someone talked to him. He was making $500,000 a year. Someone convinced him that it was better for him to be here than being at the hospital. The guy that overrides Daniel Fumbo makes $6 million a year overriding him. You follow me on that? So you're one recruit away from explosion. You just need to know that space exists, right? So have a vision for your future. Start dreaming. Start where you're at. And if you got a job right now, okay, I got a job, but I'm going to turn my annual income into a monthly one. Create the idea in your mind. Start envision it. Have a game plan. Meet with your mentor. Meet with your leader. This is where I want to be. These are the reasons what I want to achieve. Create the reasons, because reasons come first. How to comes second. You follow me? Reasons come first. How to comes second. So early on, I created my reasons. I was like, I had a hoopty. Yeah, you ever hear those calls? Man, I was sick of that damn hoopty. And when it started, boom, I was like, oh man, okay. Whew, okay. I don't want to deal with that crap no more. It wasn't even a fancy car I wanted, Lester. I just wanted something that can freaking start. You follow me? That was a reason for me. It was real.
Yeah.
Right? Second thing was, I had got promoted to SMD. I didn't have my championship ring. I was making 100 grand. I was like, I'm up here doing the BPM, talking about how great this is. I ain't making 100 grand. Right? I've got to make 100 grand. Then I called my mom. I was like, Mom, right? Because this was September of 99. I was Mom. January 2000. From January 2000, for the rest of your life, you're going to work because you want to, not because you have to. Like I said, Mom, how much money do you need on a monthly basis? And she told me at the time, it was like $2,000 a month, right? I was like, damn, I ain't really, like, as talented as I am, as smart as I am, I can't cut my mom a check for $2,000 a month. We're changing that narrative. And she started crying on the phone. She's like, oh my God, my baby, I knew there was a reason I made all the sacrifices, all this stuff. That was one of my reasons. My next reason was like, hey, I got to go to Hawaii. I keep hearing there's 2 WFGs. There's WFG that everybody's in. Then there's the top 5%. Top 5% is going to be in Hawaii. I said, I need to be part of the top 5%. Those were my reasons, right? And I put my head down for a 90-day period, September, October, November, right? And when I popped my head up in December, I had made over 6 figures in those 90-day periods, that 90-day period. With today's comp, it would have paid me over $200,000 because the comp was different back then, right? I had an unbelievable Christmas, called my mom, we're going to Hawaii, money's in your account. Oh my God. It was just like, so create those reasons, because if you have those reasons, you're going to throw your heart into the business, not your mind. You're going to throw your heart into the business. Does that make sense? All right. Back at you.
Dan, you lit us up today. And I wish I had you for another hour, but I don't. And I just want to say, Dan, the best stuff comes through you, not from you. And that's what you just spewed out wisdom today, spewed out inspiration. And thank you for being who you are at the core, Dan. You've changed for the better, but you've never lost your character. And that's what I appreciate and respect about you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, can we give it up for the one and only Dan Charlier? Make some noise right now. Blow up the chat. Show your gratitude. Show your appreciation, your love. Dan just dropped the hammer on us this evening. And guess what? I have a few announcements. So as we say goodbye to Dan, hang tight, stay on with me, because you're going to want to hear what I have to say next. So here's the thing, right? Real quick. If you see yourself as a winner, you won't perform like a loser. If you see yourself like a loser, you won't perform as a winner. So how you see yourself is going to be really important. So check this out. We're going to have Zooms like this the next 4 weeks in a row. So this was week number 1. Week number 2 is going to be next week. Take a look at this. Same time, next Saturday. Guess who's going to be on the call? You won't believe it. Robert and Richla King are going to be interviewing Daniel Fumble next Saturday at the same time. Spread the word. Tell all your teammates. Get everybody on here. This conversation is going to be another level. Can you imagine interviewing someone whose mindset is at that level? They went from 43 million points to over 74 million points in 1 year. In revenue, $74 million in revenue in 1 year. So how many of you are going to make sure that you're on that call next week? Let me see your hands. Next thing, the new BELC chat is going to be coming soon. Be on the lookout. Stay close to your mentors. Reach out to them. Say as soon as that new chat drops, you want to be a part of it. Okay? So look out for that. And the last thing I'm going to share to you is this real quick. The currency of the future will be relationships and trust. Write that down. The currency of the future will be relationships and trust. So I saw some of you today on here frantically taking notes. You know what I appreciate about that? Note takers are history makers. And that's why you're in this business. You're here to change your life. You're here to change your legacy like Dan did with his mom, that I've done with my mom. You're here to be the one for your family. And you're here to plant your flag to say, no matter what happens, I'm going to make this thing happen. Hey, the reason we're doing this, we're taking time on a Saturday evening, is because we believe in you. That's why we're doing this. The BELC is strong at our core. We're united. We are the tip of the spear. We're the ones making history in the company right now. And you're next. So if you believe that, drop your city and state in the chat with your name and tell me, I'm next. I'm going to be the next one. Whatever state you're in, whatever city you're in, you're going to be the one that your family remembers for the rest of your lifetime. You're going to be the one that they remember, that your photo is going to be, your portrait is going to be over the mantle for the rest of your generations because of what you brought to the table and because you gave it your all here. Hey, we love you. We appreciate you. And remember, faith isn't faith unless it's faith. Let's go make it happen, BLC. See you next week, Saturday. Goodbye.